Hey, it's Matt, welcome to Unbearable 73. It's time to review Sharpe's Regiment, which is season 4, episode 1 of the Sharpe TV series. And I think it's the adaptation of the. I want to say. I remember reading 17th, but it could be 16th or 15th. Sharpe novel. Okay. Uh, it's called Sharpe's Regiment. It takes place in the Napoleanic Wars, like most of the series does. It's 1813. There's a bit of a time skip here. Now, to fill in some gaps, Sharpe is a major at this point in the South Essex Regiment and the 1st Battalion. Okay. And, okay. So we've seen in previous episodes that his unit has been taking heavy hits, right? Repeatedly. So, and now we're at a stage where his unit is down to maybe like 10 guys at some point, and the regiment's in such damage that the 1st Battalion might be disbanded, the 2nd Battalion might be disbanded, and so forth, right? So Wellington sends him back to England to find out, to Britain, to find out where the troops are, because supposedly he's been getting reports that they have hundred troops ready for it, right? Now, like all of the episodes of Sharpe, I have the impression that either they filmed more scenes and cut them out, or assumed that like you can tell certain things occurred. I've said this repeatedly with Sharpe. You can tell that certain things have occurred off camera, but you know they had to have occurred, right? So you can, and there's also some lingo that gets dropped in this, which I believe British people will probably get, but Americans might not. When they say the unit just stood down, if I remember if that's the proper phrasing, that so translation, Sharpe gets back to England, talks to meets the crown prince, who I don't recall who, which is George the Fourth, okay, and he is he's not yet king. King. Oh, so King George the Third is in ill health. So King George the Prince George, or future King George the Fourth, is his regent. Okay, that's the historical fact. And I don't know in real life, but in this book, he's depicted as a bit of a kind of dumb braggart, who's more into hedonism than actual ruling. But I don't know. I don't know the historical. I will try to find an article about George the Fourth to link below, and then there we go. Now this, so they go back to England and they investigate and find out that the unit is there's like hundreds and hundreds of guys who are being paid on the books for the 2nd Battalion and the South Essex Regiment, but they're not in the recruiting grounds ready to be shipped over. So Sharpe speaks to Lord Fenner, and Fenner says, "Well, they're stood down. They're basically all the men there are just being put in there so they can be paid while waiting to get them into proper. We get enough to put a proper unit together, right?" Now Sharpe, of course, senses something going on, some funny business, and we and so they start investigating around. There's shenanigans, some assassination attempts, and blah blah blah. And ultimately they decide to fake their own deaths after an assassination attempt, okay, and they go undercover as new recruits to find out where the recruits are being taken to, and they find out where they're taken to. They escape with some knowledge. There's a really good sequence, probably the best sequence of this whole episode, which I'll try to highlight a bit, is when they're escaping, and I'll talk more about that when I get there. And then, of course, it leads to the Sharpe revealing the information, the politicking. One thing I like about this, I'm not going to reveal the exact solution because I do want to leave some. I'm doing heavy spoilers, obviously, for the show, right? But I do want to leave some of the nifty details of the political situation, how things work out, for you to discover on watching the episode. I really like. So when this episode started, I got the vibe of Sharpe, and I was enjoying that. I mean, the reality is Sean Bean and Darragh O'Malley have great on-screen chemistry, and these characters are really awesome characters. Okay, but then about 20 minutes in, I was starting to think, oh, this plot's going to be a little lame. It's not about, I want to. But then the second half of this, basically, I really loved, and I loved how it ended. I just really dug how Sharpe manipulated. Like they showed that Sharpe is extremely intelligent, but knows the limitations and understood how to take advantage of a situation he'd been given and manipulated. It was very well. The ending made it a lot better, right? So that being said, let's do a little walkthrough here. Let's mute it. So Spain, 1813, after the victory at Vittoria, Wellington prepares to invade France. The depleted South Essex faced heavy opposition after the French frontier and forced to retreat. The units basically have been damaged severely. And this is the remnants of that battle. So now Sharpe is finding out he doesn't have enough men and he gets sent back. Excellent acting as always. I love, I'm glad I had this on Blu-ray high def, even though it does look technically like you can see it needs a remaster. It really does give you good, like the colors look faded than they would be if they properly remastered this, but the you can see cool details. Like look at those buttons. You also with the mouse, right? You can see the details on the buttons pretty well. I think a remaster would make it even more visible, right? You can see like the detailing on the Sharpe uniform over here. That's some cool stuff that you can see they put the work into these uniforms, for the show. So now that's Lord Fenner in the middle there. There's Major Sharpe. Now Sharpe is famous, okay, because he captured the King George's standard, and which was considered a great and accomplished deed. He recaptured the standard, and then he also got the Napoleon standard. He's got a great reputation. Like I mean, everyone knows that would like Sharpe to be their buddy and all that, So this is Sharpe basically showing up at the recruitment camp and finding out things aren't like they should be. And these are basically backliner officers, what might be termed rear echelon motherfrackers in the modern parlance. And so he's having Harper. I was gonna call him Parker. He's having Harper get the men in line for more. This is a cool part. The military that Sharpe wants to impose some order on the guys. That's cool and all. And really, I like the pacing. I'll just redo that scene again. So look at Sean Bean. He stalks up to the guy like menacingly, and so Sharpe is asserting his command authority, trying to get intimidate guys into cooperating with him. And this is where he finds out that all these dudes are being paid in a regiment, but none of them are there. And people know Sharpe has Wellington as his backer, so he not a major normally would get blocked by a bunch of noble officers who rank higher. Of course, they know Wellington is backing him. Wellington has the king's ear. Even though George is in decline, he still has the king and the prime minister and all in their ear, so to speak, because he is doing well in the war, right? So that politics matter, and that's great that they carry that through. Like even though these are standalone episodes, there's very little of like there are meta plots that wind their way through like certain rivalries with certain characters. We'll meet another old character here who hates Sharpe and Sharpe hates him. Like the plot of the episode is self-contained, but there's a touch of meta plot connectivity that they continue to carry through, and I really like that with this series. Let's take a look right here. Again, look at the detail. Again, the high res lets us see. Look at the detailed work they put into these costumes. I don't know how authentic these are. I'm fairly sure they probably went for authenticity because this series is well regarded. That's the Prince Regent, King George, future King George IV, who only reigned like maybe 5 or 6 years, or from what I heard. So what happens is he's boasting that he was with Sharpe's men when they captured the pennon, the French pennon, French standard, herald standard, whatever it's called. And Sharpe is going along with it, and that ingratiates him with Sharpe. So Sharpe is getting a sort of patron in a sense. It's important to note that the British monarchy, their members, particularly the male ones, always serve in the military and have for centuries. So he would have served in the military probably as, and once they found out how incompetent he probably would have been like an officer on a regiment that never saw combat. He does have his own prince's regiment, which on a competent day might see the field, but to keep him away from combat, where he could overrule almost anyone except Wellington, they would rear echelon MF him, you know. Now Fenner is in charge of recruiting and whatnot. Now this is the character we get introduced to. Not that one. Yeah, what is her? She is our political intrigue. Dutch. She's a political intrigue, spy type character, and I liked her role. I still miss Sharpe's first wife, but I liked her role. And of course, we get the Sharpe romance, you know, for the women out there. Yeah, and she is married to Fenner, who he has in a position of power, and she wants power over him. Now Sharpe is wandering through the night. This is a dude collecting the dead, if I understood correctly what's going on. Now this is okay. So to explain this scene, the British, many militaries of the world, to incentivize their soldiers, allowed them a certain degree of looting. You know, usually opposing dead soldiers. Although my understanding is country to country. Like for instance, in England, if there were personal pictures of that stuff, might be ransomed back, but jewelry, gold, and money will go to the soldiers. And when they captured a garrison or a town, like the town's treasury would be split between the soldiers and all that. You know, there's basically prize money. So Sharpe has gotten. Sharpe mentioned how wealth he's gathered through his conquering, both the stuff he's carried and the unofficial stuff, like all the jewelry he's picked up, and the stuff he's the stuff he's earned legally, right? Now, and this is kind of a conversation because Sharpe started dirt poor basically, and this is a friend of his from childhood who he wants to help her out financially. She's going to kind of manage his money. And so this is where the assassination attempt happens. Let's see if we can catch it right in there. So Sharpe is drunk, and this dude's they're gonna try to kill him, but he's ready for it, and so he and Harper take them out. I think, and they find out they're actually troopers, and this is where they decide to fake their death. Now I like this guy. Okay, I like this guy's character. Didn't quite catch his name. He is Sergeant Lynch, I believe. I've seen the actor before. I'd have to look him up to get more details. But I don't know. I hope he's in the next movie. I really hope he is. So he's trying to sucker the recruits in to joining the military. Okay. And this is something that makes sense. This scene, okay, it's a really good scene, right? So he is a sergeant, a veteran sergeant, and he usually when you're recruiting, if you find talented individuals, you want to kind of get in with them because most guys are going to be infantrymen, like, you know, privates. They're never going to be leaders, or they have no skill set. You have to teach them everything, and they'll probably want to be fodder. But he spotted two dudes who are older, and he's assessing them. He realizes, and after talking with them, they've been in the military before, and they're under false names. And they get the impression that, well, we tried to make it civilian, but it wasn't working, so we're joining back up, you know. And he's doing this because had things not worked out the way they do in the plot, he was thinking, I can get these guys, I can probably train them as sergeants, and we can have more quality guys like me like these guys could be useful more over the cannon fodder. That's what this scene's all about, and it's really well done. I wish they would maybe explain a little more. Like later on, I wish I had a scene with him where and the scene must have happened, right? Because you got the impression that Sharpe and Harper respected this guy to an extent through the process, and I wish they had shown a scene where he had a conversation with them, saying, "You guys have potential. I'm recruiting you." Like something like just a little 30-second, 2-minute dialogue somewhere in there, but And this, of course, is the doctor sort of being paid to hand wave them into the military. The recruits being marched to training camp. And of course, this is a senior man stealing the possessions of the And now this guy okay, so this guy again, I'm betting in the novel we got this guy's background. We learned at one point he was an effective soldier, but something happened and we learned he has a sort of phobia, and and he has a very rigid training method, but it is effective in terms of getting the men to drill and whatever. So I think Sharpe sees the value of it, but ultimately tones it down, and Now this guy plays the lunatic, and of course, for those who aren't familiar with it, there is a lot of anti-Irish bigotry at the. I don't, and I'm not talking about you modern trigger warning morons. Okay, back then there was legit hatred between the English and Irish and the Welsh and the Scottish. They were reluctant members of the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, and all that. But Harper is from Northern Ireland, and the men, the colonel has a thing against Irish troopers, and this guy carries along with it. This sergeant, you know. This would be part. So way back in the day, before modern military, like the last 100 years worth of more scientific training, yes, there was brutalization of the troops to get them in line, to teach them the military method. I don't know. I mean, this is just movie training scenes. The men are being drilled, learning to march in proper order and all that. They gotta. Now, in modern terms, I've talked to a lot of my friends who've been in the Marines, and the drill instructor, how they were all at Paris Island, especially, they were excessively hard ass. Maybe on purpose to get the recruits ready to so like overexpose them to stress, which makes sense. Even when I would do like wrestling practice in high school, or I've heard other guys, like you train. I remember reading too in the military, like you want to train in excess of the physical and physical stress and mental situation they're likely to encounter. That's not the experience, but get the body and the mind conditioned to something as bad or worse they could possibly encounter. So when they do encounter the horror and the shock in the scenario, their excessive preparedness can help them compensate for the horrors of war until they can make the psychological adjustment. That I've read soldiers accounting of when they had to make it, like thankful that they had the hard ass training and whatever. So. And this is about where I started to really enjoy the episode, right around the 45-minute mark. When we saw and obviously with a bit of time skipping. These men had to be drilling for more than a day to get this degree of skill, and we're learning that the men are being auctioned off essentially as slaves. I mean, slavery, especially England, had been hardcore against slavery. They have been and we meet Sir Henry, I believe his name is, to come back from previous episodes. This were Sharpe front. The men are being shown off as basically human chattel and being purchased by officers for their regiments. This is illegal even under British law in terms of Again, if I have a feeling if this were ever fully remastered, the green, for example, would be more vibrant green, both of her dress and the background. The whites will be a little more white and less kind of dark, dirtyish looking at the higher res. Now this is a swampy area where they do some training, and that's relevant. And of course, then we have our officers. Now this guy was running away, and he starts to drown, and Sharpe saves him, but then basically they shoot him because he's a deserter, and they have excessive, over the top, like, you know. And he gets basically an unknown grave in the muds of the swamp. Now Sharpe and Harper have had to keep their faces hidden from this guy because he would recognize them. So they've been using mud and blood and not making eye contact. Plus wearing those training uniforms and all that. And what's happening here is they're actually hunting some of the men as sport, which again, a lot of these dudes should have been fucking executed if I were filming this, if I were writing this. But I think Sharpe's a lighter tone. And this is Sharpe and Harper beginning to make their escape. And this is a really cool sequence, right? So they have all these guys trying to hunt Sharpe and Harper, right? And Sharpe and Harper have superior training. So people might say, well, how could they get away from these guys? You guys are on horses or whatever. This is a truism, okay? I remember multiple stories, like Sean Bean did a movie about one of these guys. It's the guy who had the longest, the special forces guy who had the longest overland escape. I think it was called not Zero Dark 30. That was a Bin Laden one. I shall look it up. It was Bravo 20. So Sean Bean played Andy McNabb, and it's a pretty cool movie based on a book. And they were on patrol, and then the unit got shot up, and they had to do this is where Chris Ryan's from, by the way, the same unit, and he wrote a book, movie and book about it, and they had to escape from the survivors had to escape on a massive overland, like hundreds of kilometers, and their superior training enabled them to get away from the Iraqis. Okay, so this is a cool movie, one of the better movie examples of superior training, right, against guys who have no ability to deal with the training. They know how to manipulate the events by moving around, and you'd have to see, So they get away, and then Sharpe talks to this is another female in the episode. She is the niece of Sharpe's enemy, Sir Henry. I want to call him Sir Henry. Let me find a picture of the dude. No. Oh, the guy I enjoyed was Norman Rossington as Sergeant Horatio Hovercamp. Oh, Sir Henry, right? Sir Henry. Okay. So she is Sir Henry's niece, and she is she Henry's niece? No, she is. Yeah, and she's being given in marriage to the colonel, and she doesn't want to marry him, and she wants to. So she agrees to try to help Sharpe escape and get the secret books that Sharpe needs and all that. And I'm not going to go much more into the plot, other than they make their escape. And again, from halfway through is when I really loved this movie. We get into the political intrigue, which is really okay. Aside from the one of the things I love about this movie is the nitty gritty politicking and backstabbing, and you see it through the whole episode. but it really is done well in the second half, right? So I'm not going to spoil all the events, but basically these rich noble guys are war profiteers, and they're trying to profit off of the soldiers instead of sending them where the king where because King George is failing. King George the Prince Regent is an incompetent buffoon, and so these lords are basically running the country with no one to oversee them, right? And to be honest, no one will be able to oversee them until after King George the Fourth eventually dies. Again, to point out, if you like Sharpe's uniform, anyway, I don't want to believe the point, but I believe the color is, if the as great as it is, I just want to keep pointing out. The last time I pointed out, if they had remastered the colors would be better looking. Other than that, I'm not complaining because it's still very well filmed. You could see the details, like look at Sharpe's chain here. You could see the detailing on the uniform, on the dresses, that they did good work with the costuming here. And in the background, you could see they clearly set up the actors in the background have been directed to behave properly in the scene, not to sit there. So this is when Sharpe has got his identity back as Major Sharpe. He's come back. He's come in and he's asserting his authority. Both, even though this colonel outranks him, because he's Wellington's guy and everyone knows it, and he has blackmail on them too. They can't really stop him. And is Harper getting his back at the sergeant who was abusing him? And we begin to learn some of these officers are not. They're all scum for hunting people like foxes or whatever. But they're not. They're still They're not as horrible officers as some of the others are. And this is where, and then Sharpe has the regiment, the men, he's taking them back to get them on board so they can go overseas. And this is kind of where I'm going to stop, right? Because normally, this is 20 years old, full spoilers, blah, 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 right? But there's a cool sequence. It's why I love the second half of this. There's a cool sequence in there that occurs, which I love personally. It's kind of theatrical. And but it fits Sharpe's character, it fits the tone, and they built towards it. Like, both in previous episodes with the establishment of Sharpe's reputation, and in things they did in this episode, they built towards that little when Sharpe gets it, when he gets over, so to speak, right? And then there's a payout when you think Sharpe didn't quite get it, like he was gonna win but not really win, but then he still kind of wins because someone else helps him out, and. But I don't want to show the particulars because I think it's worth watching. Okay. Now we'll go to conclude. As to we've been going, I've been going for 28 minutes, so let's look up one or two little particular things. So Cornwell wrote the novel. Charles Wood wrote the screenplay. Tom Clegg, who passed away a few years ago, he did. Tom Clegg, the director, did great work on this one. Great work, okay? You can tell the way he staged the cameras, the way he filmed, the way he put it together. I don't know if he directed previous episodes. Oh, look at this. Okay, so he's directed a bunch of stuff that I've enjoyed. Bravo 20, I mentioned that exactly, right? He's directed episodes of Space 1999, right? Well, did he direct them or was he in it? Was he? Yeah, he was. Okay, so he was a director. So anyway, Special Branch, TV show. I gotta look that up. I remember that show. So this guy was involved in a lot of stuff I've enjoyed. Sharpe, Bravo 20, Special Branch, Space 1999. There's a TV show, a police procedural from the 70s called The Sweeney, which I've heard is really good. He was involved in that. So yeah, so this is yeah. And I'm looking at what's called a selected filmography, and and you know what else makes sense? He was in the Royal Air Force, so he has a military background. So him doing this episode with the military authentic feel of it also makes sense. Right? So that's about all I want to say on this one. Again, like any episode of the show, it's worth watching. I hope you all enjoy it. My name is Matt. I keep uhing. I gotta stop the uhing. I stopped the umming. I gotta stop the uhing now. My name is Matt. This is my Unbearable 73 review of Sharpe, Season 4, Episode 1, Sharpe's Regiment. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike. Please share this out there. Hope you enjoyed my review of Sharpe. Have a great weekend.